So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts, in which we cover a particular day's current affairs in a very short span of time within 30 minutes. Now, I know we haven't been fairly regular in the past couple of days, okay? Past couple of days, current affairs haven't been uploaded, and there is a 2 days backlog as far as current affairs are concerned. Therefore, today we will drop two current affairs lecture. This would be the first one. So first one would cover 6th May 2025 current affairs, and then today itself we will cover 7th May current affairs as well. So stay tuned for the next lecture for current affairs because we want to finish the backlog so that we are up to date with every day's current affairs every day. Okay, now needless to say this, I hope you all know this by now that if you want to revise these current affairs, because revision is very important, you can revise these current affairs from the notes, and these notes are shared on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below this video. Okay, so let's start with 6th May 2025 current affairs. Let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So here's the list. Number one in this list is Ozempic could reverse liver disease. Okay, so there is this medicine drug called Ozempic, which is an anti-diabetes drug. But recently it was found that it can also solve the problem of obesity. So people who are suffering from obesity can take this drug. And now a recent research has come out which says that Ozempic can also work in curing liver disease. Okay, so what is this liver disease? Fatty liver disease basically. We'll talk about the credentials of Ozempic and how Ozempic helps in fighting diabetes, obesity and liver disease. Okay. Then second news item is a little bit controversial because the thing is that recently when Indian government announced that all the Pakistanis staying in India which do not have valid visa documents, well, long-term visa documents, and their visas have been cancelled, who have visas, and they have to be returned back to Pakistan, right? So an interview surfaced in the news channels and one person claimed that he's from Pakistan but he has voted in India. And that was really controversial, that a Pakistani can vote in India, right? So therefore, this begs the question, how are voter rolls created? How are voter ID cards issued? Okay, so who gets voter ID and how? We'll talk about this. Then recently, well, an ancient stupa in Piprahwa, which contained the relics of Gautam Buddha, well, they were excavated by the British when they were ruling India, and some of those relics were taken by one particular family to England. Now that family is auctioning those, and India is really not happy because, well, those are relics of Gautam Buddha himself. Okay, therefore, these are part of global Buddhist heritage and culture. Therefore, they shouldn't be excavated and returned to India. So this is India's argument. So let's talk about Piprahwa relics. And in the end, we'll talk about India adding more gold to its FOREX reserves. Why is India doing that? Why is India demanding more gold for its FOREX reserves? What is the role of gold in FOREX reserves? We'll talk about this entire issue. Okay, so these are the four topics that we will zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one. Starting with Ozempic could reverse liver disease. So, an international team of researchers found that a weekly dose of semaglutide. So, semaglutide is that chemical basically which is added in this drug, Ozempic. Semaglutide is the main ingredient of Ozempic. Okay. Now, this international team of researchers have found that semaglutide was effective at treating metabolic dysfunction associated steatohepatitis. Steatohepatitis. Basically, this is fatty liver disease. Many people suffer from this fatty liver, and basically, well, you get fatty liver because of alcohol overdose, okay, or if you are addicted to alcohol. Sometimes people who are not addicted to alcohol can also get fatty liver disease. This is known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Okay. Now, MASH is basically non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and researchers have found that semaglutide basically can cure this liver disease. Now, semaglutide is a main ingredient of Ozempic. Semaglutide is used to cure diabetes. Okay, it is prescribed to people who are suffering from type 2 diabetes. It is prescribed to people who are suffering from obesity also. And now researchers have claimed that it can be prescribed to people. Semaglutide can be prescribed to people who are suffering from this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease called MASH. Semaglutide is the key component of diabetes drug Ozempic, and the brand name of this Ozempic medicine is Wegovy. Okay, so Ozempic is basically the brand name for diabetes disease. Okay, and Wegovy is the brand name for the drug that cures obesity. Both of them contain semaglutide, and it is because of semaglutide that you can cure diabetes and weight loss, or basically overweight. Okay, now about MASH, what is this liver disease? Okay, you need to know about this. So it was previously known as non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, but today it is known as metabolic steatohepatitis. Okay, MASH. It is a progressive liver disease characterized by fat buildup in liver. That is why it is called fatty liver. So fat continues to deposit on liver tissues, which causes inflammation of liver tissues, causes cell damage, okay, without alcohol abuse, because it is non-alcoholic. Now, over time, if you do not cure it, then it can ultimately lead to scarring, damage to liver tissue, and if that damage progresses, then that is known as liver cirrhosis. Okay, so if your liver cells or tissues are damaged, it is known as liver fibrosis, and if the damage goes even further, then it is called liver cirrhosis. But it starts with the buildup of fat on liver, MASH. Okay, now generally it is said that people who are either suffering from obesity, type 2 diabetes, or who have metabolic syndrome, that means their metabolism is not that quick, okay, they generally develop fatty liver disease. Now, people who suffer from obesity and type 2 diabetes are given semaglutide, right? So, semaglutide may, well, first of all, it will definitely work against obesity and type 2 diabetes, which cause or which are associated with fatty liver disease. But scientists have found that semaglutide can even help in curing this liver disease. Okay. Now, about semaglutide, why is semaglutide so special? So, semaglutide is an anti-diabetic medication used for treatment of type 2 diabetes and an anti-obesity medication used for long-term weight management. Now, what is so special about semaglutide? You see, our body produces a particular type of hormone called glucagon-like peptide 1. You can call it GLP-1. Now, if your body produces more GLP, then, well, this would lead to less hunger. Okay, this would lead to less hunger in your body, and you won't eat that much food. That is why semaglutide, okay, that is why people, first of all, let me tell you this. GLP-1 is a hormone that controls your hunger, so you eat less food. But there are some people who suffer from low secretion of GLP-1. That is why these people eat a lot of food, they get obesity. So semaglutide is basically an artificial version of GLP-1. So when you take semaglutide, it secretes GLP-1 in your body, your hunger gets reduced, you take less your food intake gets reduced, and you can manage your weight. So you can cure obesity. Another function of GLP-1 receptor or GLP-1 is that it lowers blood sugar. Okay, so people who have adequate amounts of GLP-1, well, they have lower blood sugar levels. But people who do not have adequate amounts of GLP-1, well, they are given semaglutide. Semaglutide mimics GLP-1 and it lowers blood sugar level. That is why it is given to people who are suffering from type 2 diabetes as well. Clear? Basically, what GLP-1 does is that GLP-1 stimulates the secretion of insulin. Insulin is the hormone that reduces your blood sugar levels. Okay, so this is the thing. Clear? That is why semaglutide works for diabetes as well as obesity, and now people are claiming, researchers are claiming that it will work for MASH as well. Okay, that's it. That's all you need to know as far as this topic is concerned. Now let's talk about the controversial issue: who gets voter ID and how? Okay, the thing is that the controversial interview of a Pakistani who was being deported back to Pakistan, well, he claimed that he has voted in Indian elections. Okay, that brought into question and that sprung government into action also. Okay, Now, following a government order in the wake of Pahalgam terror attack, hundreds of Pakistani nationals have left India. But many claim that they have Aadhaar cards, valid Aadhaar cards, and they even have voter IDs. Now, how could non-citizens of India have voter IDs? So you need to know about the process of allocation of voter IDs. How do people get voter IDs? Okay, first let's talk about the constitutional and legal provisions with respect to this. Clear? So as far as the constitution is concerned, Article 326 says that every Indian citizen, mind you, Indian citizen, aged above 18 years or above, has the right to vote in elections to Lok Sabha, state assemblies or union territory assemblies. So this is the constitutional right to vote that every Indian citizen has. Okay, only citizen. Now in India, to regulate elections, there are two laws. Representation of People's Act 1950, Representation of People's Act 1951. Representation of People's Act 1950 basically takes care of electoral rolls, voter list. Okay, how voter list would be prepared and everything. Representation of People's Act 1951 deals with conduct of elections. How elections would be conducted, what are the qualification and disqualification of candidates, election expenditure, everything. Clear? So this issue of voter ID definitely deals with Representation of People's Act 1950 because it deals with electoral rules. Now section 16 of Representation of People's Act 1950 lists down disqualifications for a person to be registered on an electoral roll. Look, the constitution says that every Indian citizen above the age of 18 has the right to vote. But this section 16 lists down further disqualifications also. That even if you're an Indian citizen, there are some disqualifications or there are some things that if you do, you'll be disqualified to vote. So what are these disqualifications? First of all, the constitutional obligation if a person is not a citizen of India. If he is of unsound mind and stands so declared by a competent court. If a competent court declares that this person is mentally unfit, then or a person is disqualified from voting under provisions of any law relating to offences in relation with elections. So if a person performed corrupt practices while elections, he was distributing money or anything, then he can be disqualified from voting also. Clear? So these are the disqualifications mentioned in section 16. So this is the law, constitution and the law. Now what is the procedure basically? Okay, what is the process of registration? How do we register people and issue them voter cards? So if you want a voter ID card, well, you have to fill Form 6 of Election Commission. Okay, Form 6 is a form of registering new electors. It requires the applicant to provide self-attested copies of age proof and address proof. As you can see over here, if you want a voter ID card, then you have to fill Form 6. You have to provide address proof, age proof, ID proof. Okay, that is generally Aadhaar card. Clear? Now, you don't have to give your Aadhaar card or birth certificate. Okay, you just have to get a photocopy and submit it. Okay, so you have to give self-attested copies. Clear? No verification will be done initially. Okay, your form would get submitted. It should be self-attested. Then it would be the responsibility of electoral registration officer to verify that whether the self-attested copies that you have provided are genuine or not. Clear? Now there is one problem. In this Form 6, you don't have to provide your citizenship proof. You just have to give your signatures on a declaration that you are citizen of India. Okay, so there is a declaration that I am a citizen of India. You just have to sign on it. You don't have to provide any citizenship proof. But if electoral registration officer found that you are not a citizen of India, yet you signed on this declaration, or you provided false documents, then under Section 31 of Representation of People's Act, you will be punished with imprisonment up to 1 year or fine or both. Now, the entire verification is done by electoral registration officer. And in this case, where a Pakistani voted in Indian elections, well, the fault lies with the electoral registration officer of that area. That is why government is ready to take action on that electoral registration officer. ERO is responsible for ensuring no ineligible person is included in electoral rolls. Okay, so within this news item, you just have to remember Article 326, Section 16. Just remember for voter ID, it is RPA 1950, not 1951. Clear? And the entire responsibility is with Electoral Registration Officer. Clear? Okay, then. Let's move forward to topic number 3, which is Piprahwa Relics. Union Ministry of Culture is trying to stop the auction of an extraordinary historical treasure, relics that were found more than 125 years ago. So look, Piprahwa is a place in UP. Okay, so back in 1880s, when there was British rule in India, there was this land owner. Okay, there was this landlord, European landlord called Pepe. Okay, he was the landowner of that Piprahwa area. Now he did some excavations and he stumbled upon an ancient Buddhist stupa in Piprahwa. Now Piprahwa is the place that is basically, it is said that it is the ancient city of Lumbini, okay, where Buddha was born. Clear? We'll talk about that. Okay, so I'll talk about this story first, then we'll talk about Gautam Buddha. So he stumbled upon this stupa, and when he excavated that stupa, he found so many gemstones. He found a box also, and in that box there were some burnt ashes or cremated burial ashes, or maybe cremated remains of Gautam Buddha, some gemstones which were in this stupa, a place of worship for Buddhists. Okay, cremated remains of Gautam Buddha. Now he excavated that. Some of those remains were taken by, or some of those, this treasure was taken by British government. But 1/5 of this treasure, which includes the cremated remains of Gautam Buddha, were taken by Pepe to England. He then transferred it to his family members and so on and so forth. And now, family related to Pepe is basically auctioning it because they hope that they will earn a lot of money out of it. Now, Indian Culture Ministry has issued a legal notice. Okay, it says that the collection includes bone fragments, soapstone, crystal caskets, sandstone, coffer, and offerings such as gold ornaments and gemstones that belong to India. Okay, now how do these belong to India? Well, there are laws in India which make sure that these items belong to India. Let's talk about Piprahwa relics. So these are relics excavated from the Piprahwa stupa, widely identified as ancient Kapilavastu, the capital of Shakya Republic, and Shakya Republic's prince was Siddhartha Gautam, Prince Siddhartha, who was later known as Gautam Buddha. Okay, now when Gautam Buddha must have attained nirvana, Mahaparinirvana, he must have died. Okay, then his mortal remains must have been inserted in a stupa, and that stupa is used for worship by the Buddhists. Okay, now this Pepe guy in 1898, basically English estate manager, he must have stumbled upon this and he took it. Upon excavation, an enormous stone coffer which contained gems, precious metals, and some cremated remains of Buddha, who died in 480 BC. He found it. Okay, now what's the issue? So when it was found, the British Crown claimed the found relics from Pepe under Indian Treasure Trove Act of 1878, colonial era law. Okay, so most of the gems and precious metals, well, they were taken by British government and displayed in Indian Museum in Kolkata. But 1/5 of total find were retained by Pepe. It is these finds that are being auctioned now. Now, Buddhist academics, leaders, religious leaders have condemned this auctioning, and they say that these remains are part of Buddhist heritage and they must be returned. In fact, Indian government says that these relics are protected under Indian laws. First of all, well, 1972 Antiques and Art Treasures Act, Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act, and the British era Treasure Trove Act also. They also make sure that these relics belong to India. So now let's see what happens, okay? And now we'll move on to our last news item, which is India adds gold to FOREX. RBI added 47.49 tons of gold to its FOREX during the fiscal that ended March 2025. Now, the thing is that RBI owns a lot of gold in its FOREX reserve. Okay, some of that gold is kept in India. Some of that gold is held in gold deposits abroad. So these gold deposits, this gold is owned by India, but it is like opening a bank account in a foreign bank. Similarly, India has held gold deposits in Bank of England and Bank of International Settlements. Now, India is repatriating or bringing back this gold in gold deposits back to India. India doesn't want to hold them in these accounts. India wants to hold them within India. Clear? So, in the last 2 years, India has brought back 88.60 tons of gold back to India from Bank of England and Bank of International Settlements. Okay. Now, as far as India's forex reserve is concerned, you need to know this. Foreign exchange reserve, basically. Okay. So, India's forex is basically composed of 4 items. Number one is gold. Number two is foreign currency assets, mostly dollars. Okay, most countries keep dollars in their forex reserve. Then there is special drawing rights of IMF. Then there is reserve tranche position of IMF. Okay. Now, with the bringing back of this gold and buying new gold, okay, the total share of gold in India's forex reserve goes to 11.7%. So 11.7% of India's forex reserve is made up of gold. The rest is mostly made up of dollars, foreign currency assets. India keeps some pounds, euros also, but mostly it's dollar. Clear? Now, about gold and forex. So, like I said, India's forex reserves, gold, foreign currency assets, special drawing rights, and reserve transposition. Now, recently, it's not just RBI, but many central banks of the world, okay, have started buying up gold. Because most central banks of the world have kept their forex mostly in dollars, US dollars. But recently, global trust in dollars has declined, and many people, many countries, many central banks of the world are trying to reduce their dependence on US dollars. And what better way to reduce your dependence on dollars than by buying more gold? So many central banks are replacing their dollars with gold. And why? Well, simply put, gold is considered a safe haven asset. Okay? If there is any crisis in the world, well, gold will still protect you because its value won't drop. Generally, it is considered that way. That is why RBI is not alone in buying up and basically beefing up its gold reserves. Most central banks are doing that because they are trying to replace more and more gold with dollars. Sorry, more and more dollars with gold. Now, as far as the largest reserves of gold are concerned, well, USA has the highest reserves of gold. You should to remember this. USA has the world's highest gold reserves, but it is followed by Germany, Italy, and France. India has 8th rank as far as gold reserves are concerned. Clear? So remember this fact. Now, I told you that most of the gold by RBI is kept in gold deposits of Bank of England and, well, Bank of International Settlements. Now, Bank of England is a bank. What is Bank of International Settlements? Okay. So, Bank for International Settlements is an international financial institution owned by many central banks. So, central banks of 63 member countries own this jointly BIS. Okay. These 63 member countries include RBI. What is the function of BIS? Well, BIS basically acts as banker to these central banks. It gives them loans, accept their deposits and all that. Okay. So BIS is basically an instrument of international monetary and financial cooperation, as well as it acts as banker to these banks. Now, it was established in 1930. Clear? That's all you need to know as far as this is concerned. Clear? And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it would add more value, like I say this every time, if you revise this lecture as well. Please do not forget to revise. You can revise it from the notes on our Telegram channel. On that note, I'll be signing off with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items soon, today itself. Thank you, everyone.